Creating a buzz for ourselves, like doing showcases. I'm talking about for any and everybody. And we met an individual who ended up being our production guy.
Beginning in the early 2000s, no teen R&B group rose as explosively as B5. They had everything striking looks, a massive fan base, sold-out tours, and the backing of one of the biggest record labels in the United States. They once caused an entire shopping mall to shut down because thousands of fans crowded in just to see them for a few seconds. In just a few short years, the spotlight went dark. B5 vanished entirely from the market, a disappearance so unusual that even people inside the industry couldn't explain it. What happened behind the scenes? Who or what caused B5 to disappear without a trace? From a parking garage to the doors of Bad Boy Records. If you look at B5 in the 2005-2006 era, when they stood on the stages of BET and MTV and shut down shopping malls, because thousands of fans were pushing and screaming just to see them for a few seconds, it's hard to believe that all of it began in a sweltering parking garage in St. Petersburg, Florida. No studio, no producer, no team. Just 5 breeding boys, an old radio, and a dream so reckless, it was almost innocent to sing for the world. In the late 1990s, the 4 older brothers, Dustin, Kelly, Patrick, and Carnell, were only 8 to 12 years old. But every evening after school, while other kids ran out to the field, they gathered in the garage and practiced until their voices went hoarse. They named themselves TNT Boys, perfectly matching the explosive spirit of boys growing up who believed music was their ticket out of a struggling neighborhood. Around 1998 to 2001, TNT Boys began performing at local fairs, community events, and church gatherings. No real stage, no professional microphones. But wherever they showed up, people stopped to look. The grainy handycam footage from that era, blurry images, crackling sound ended up spreading through the community, sparking whispers. These boys are different. Around 2001-2002, Destiny walked into the Breeding family garage in the form of its smallest member, Brian the youngest. No one planned for it. But the moment he opened his mouth and released that bright, emotional, soaring voice, his 4 older brothers instantly understood what had just happened. TNT Boys was finished. They became B5 Breeding 5, a name that didn't just represent 5 members, but a declaration. We are a family. We are one unit. From 2002 onward, B5's journey shifted course. They began traveling from Florida to Georgia for talent competitions, sometimes just to stand on stage for 3 minutes. The family didn't have much, but their mother Adrienne always told them, "Don't worry, just sing. I'll take care of the rest." That persistence turned them from garage kids into a small regional phenomenon across the southeastern United States. The turning point came around 2003 when they entered a major competition in Atlanta. Among dozens of young groups fighting for a shot, B5 appeared with explosive yet disciplined performance energy, powerful on stage but incredibly refined. For the first time, they didn't just catch the audience's attention. They made industry insiders stop and ask, "Who are these kids?" It took only a few months for the buzz to reach someone every boy band dreamed of meeting: Sean Diddy Combs, the chairman of Bad Boy Records, the producer who helped shape the careers of Mary J. Blige, Notorious B.I.G., and Faith Evans. A heavyweight the entire American entertainment industry respected. Diddy wasn't easily impressed, but when he watched B5's homemade video, he saw something few teen groups possessed: unusually solid vocals for their age, unexpectedly beautiful harmonies, effortless stage presence, and most importantly, the massive commercial potential of a family group. Late 2003, the call came. Bad Boy wanted to meet them, wanted to test their abilities, wanted to see whether that spark from a Florida garage could truly shine on a grand scale. The Breeding family flew to New York carrying hope and a barely contained nervousness. In the Bad Boy studio standing before Diddy, the man who could change their lives with a single nod, the 5 boys sang as if it were the last performance of their lives. No choreography, no tricks. Only music honest and full of longing. Diddy listened, stayed silent for a few seconds, then nodded. The decision was made soon after signing them. In 2004, B5 officially joined Bad Boy Records, and from that moment, their entire world shifted. They moved from free community performances to professional studios in New York, from amateur videos to preparing for appearances on BET, MTV, and Radio Disney. From a mom-managed group to artists under one of the biggest record labels in America. No one, not even the boys themselves, understood that this was a double-edged door. One side would lift them to the breathtaking heights of 2005-2006. The other would push them into harsh storms their young childhoods were never prepared to handle. But at that moment when they signed the contract with Bad Boy, they held on to one simple, beautiful belief. We've entered the big world, and nothing can stop us now. They had no idea. That same door would open into dazzling fame before slamming shut, burying the career they had poured their entire childhoods into building. Touching the sky. The moment their contract with Bad Boy Records dried on paper, B5's world changed color overnight. The boys who once practiced beside bicycles and toy boxes suddenly stepped into cold, white-lit studios where producers who had worked with Usher, Beyoncé, and Chris Brown were waiting. No more rattling ceiling fans. No more neighbors' dogs barking over their vocals. Only music pure and ruthless. Diddy didn't sign them to make a cute boy band for fun. He wanted a phenomenon. And to create one, he put B5 into a training regimen so intense that even adults would have struggled. Their days began with vocal training, followed by choreography, then recording sessions, mock interviews, and lessons in stage presence. The schedule stretched 10 to 12 hours a day. Dustin once said that during that time, they couldn't tell day from night. All they knew was the microphone in front of them and the enormous expectations pressing on their teenage shoulders. But the results were golden. In 2005, their debut album B5 was released, and it exploded literally. In its first week, the album debuted at number 19 on the Billboard 200 and number 7 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart numbers any young group of that era would envy. The kids who once sang in their backyard were now walking into packed press conferences. But what turned B5 into a national frenzy wasn't just the album. It was All I Do, their youthful high-energy R&B remake of a Jackson 5 classic. All I Do became a storm. On Bet's 106 & Park, the song kept landing in the audience's favorites. On Radio Disney, it climbed to number 9 and became one of the most played tracks in the evening slots. On MTV, footage of 5 curly-haired boys dancing with clockwork precision mesmerized millions of teens. Fans began gathering outside their hotels. Girls cried when they met them. B5 posters covered bedroom walls across America. What did it feel like Jackson 5, like B2K, like every group that ever made America lose its mind? But the reason B5 rose above the average teen group was the family factor. 5 real brothers singing together, blending their voices with an instinctive unity that sent chills through audiences. No manufactured boy band could imitate that energy. They didn't share a roof, a breakfast table, or a childhood, and the audience felt it. In July 2005, during a free show at the Mall of America in Minnesota, more than 2,000 fans pushed and shoved just to see B5 for 10 minutes. The situation nearly spiraled out of control. Security had to pull them off the stage amidst chaotic screaming. The press called it the B5 hysteria. From shopping malls, they moved to the massive stages of the Scream Tour, the same platform that had launched Bow Wow Omarion and B2K. They performed alongside Usher, Bow Wow, and Fantasia, the biggest names in R&B and hip-hop at the time. If you ever watch those fuzzy 2005 Bet videos, you'll see 5 small-framed boys standing in a sea of lights singing as if they were born to be there. B5 didn't just sing, they shaped culture. Disney Channel used their music repeatedly in shows like That's So Raven and Hannah Montana. They appeared on teen talk shows, magazines printed giant posters of them. People called them the new princes of teen R&B, and the height of recognition. Disney offered them their own sitcom, a family show built around 5 brothers living together, the same formula that later turned the Jonas Brothers into global icons. It was a potentially life-changing offer. At that moment, it seemed like their future was a straight line shooting upward into the sky. Their shows were always packed. Fans chased their van. Singles like You Got Me kept momentum and charted high on Radio Disney. The Breeding Boys had become a national brand. Their success came not only from talent, but from the perfect merge of market demand and timing. The early 2000s were a transitional era when pop R&B and hip-hop blended into wildly popular hybrid boy bands. Audiences wanted young, clean-cut faces with urban energy, and B5 was the most perfect version of that formula. What mattered most, B5 were never arrogant. Even when compared to the Jackson 5, even when labeled the next big phenomenon, even when achieving in a few years. What many artists never achieve in a lifetime, they still carried the spirit of the Florida kids who once sang in a garage. But the moment they stood at the top, that was when dark clouds quietly gathered backstage. Because the brighter the light, the longer the shadow. And the peak is always the beginning of a slope no one sees. In closed rehearsals, intense meetings, in the unspoken rules of the music industry, and especially in the decisions made by the man who controlled Bad Boy, the first cracks began to appear. Small, invisible, but real. And it would take only one impact for those cracks to spread across the entire sky they had just touched. B5 were standing where any young group would dream to be. But they had no idea that beyond the blinding spotlight lay the deepest darkness they would ever face. When the bright lights turn into a blade, the peak never announces the day it collapses. It simply falls. At the moment B5 touched the sky, no one, not even they themselves, imagined that the road ahead wasn't a walk of fame, but a vertical cliff. The cracks that were once too small to notice now began to split open, swallowing everything they had built. The first signs appeared in 2007. After the success of their debut album, Bad Boy Records rushed the production of their second project, Don't Talk, Just Listen. What seemed like a major step forward accidentally marked the beginning of a downward spiral. Overlapping schedules, heavy pressure, and a lack of time to refine the material led to an album born in an undercooked state, polished enough to release, but not fully ripened. When Don't Talk, Just Listen came out instead of Cheers, there was an unsettling silence. The album debuted at number 27 on the Billboard 200, nearly 10 spots lower than the first, despite the group being more famous by then. There was no strong marketing push, no strategic support from the label, no aggressive backing like in 2005. For industry insiders, this wasn't surprising. Bad Boy was focusing on bigger, more established acts and different market strategies. And for a teen group, neglect from the label was equivalent to a slow death sentence. But for B5, this was only the first scratch. That mild commercial underperformance triggered a domino effect. Their show schedule was cut. Media appearances dropped sharply. Major stages no longer invited them as frequently. Promised deals, the Disney sitcom long-term tours, their own TV program, quietly disappeared. And then the fractures within the group began to surface. Not because they disliked each other, but because each of them was growing in different directions. Before, they only knew practice and following adults' instructions. But now, Dustin wanted to write music. Kelly wanted a more mature sound. Carnell leaned toward traditional R&B, while Patrick was drawn to urban pop. Brian, the youngest, watched all the silent divergence without knowing where he belonged. Then came the shock no one expected. B5 changed their name. To refresh their image, the label and management forced them to become Audio, a name so lifeless that even longtime fans had to ask, who is that? B5, the name that once shook shopping malls, was erased and replaced with something with no soul. It was a blow to their identity. From 5 rising stars, they became an unbranded product hard to recognize, and alien even to their own fans. The rebrand failed miserably. Fans didn't embrace it. The media didn't care. Performances dwindled to a trickle, and so B5 slipped into the shadows. Months, then years passed without any significant releases. They didn't publicly disband, they simply vanished. No tours, no albums, no television appearances. The Breeding Brothers returned to ordinary life. Some pursued small solo efforts, some studied, some searched for personal paths. B5 became a memory, a name that, when mentioned, prompted only a sigh. Where did they go? But behind that disappearance were stories the public never heard, the real reasons buried beneath the glossy surface of the entertainment industry. Because no group at the top suddenly collapses without a reason. And in B5's case, those reasons were deeper, darker, and more surprising than anyone imagined. So what were they? The shadow of the Bad Boy boss. If B5's rise to the top was built on the launchpad of Bad Boy Records, then it was that very same label and its leader, Sean Diddy Combs, that became the first piece to make everything start collapsing. Their relationship with the Bad Boy empire was nowhere near as simple as the glamorous surface suggested. Behind it was a harsh hierarchy of power that every young artist had to obey, where even the smallest misalignment could turn into disaster. Diddy was the kind of executive who could turn someone into a superstar, but also the kind who could make an artist's career crumble into dust in an instant. He was known for perfectionism, iron discipline, and a management style. So hands-on it felt like he controlled each breath his artists took. For adults, that was already difficult. For teenagers like B5, it was a burden beyond imagination. Diddy wanted them to be Bad Boy's next shield in the teen R&B market, yet he never built a long-term strategy for them, something any boy band desperately needs. No plan for image development, no album roadmap, no serious investment in the B5 brand. The debut album was heavily supported because the goal was to create fast impact. But once the initial buzz cooled, Bad Boy practically abandoned them. No structured marketing, no plan to maintain visibility, no long-term direction to help B5 hold their position on the charts. When the second album was released and failed to meet expectations, Bad Boy immediately reduced its investment, exactly the use and discard model the music industry has been criticized for. This wasn't a musical failure, it was managerial failure. No one stood behind them. No one carved out a path forward. But the problem didn't stop at neglect. It extended to the way Diddy controlled them behind the scenes. Multiple sources and later accounts revealed that Diddy often yelled at them, scolded them, and applied intense psychological pressure during rehearsals. The Breeding Brothers were still teenagers, ages 11 to 17, yet they had to function in an environment as harsh as that of seasoned adult artists. None of them dared argue. None were old enough to understand they were being pulled into a brutal machine. They just followed orders and hoped for the best. But the hardest blow came from something the public never knew. Disney once wanted to partner with B5 to create their own sitcom, a project that could have launched them into global stardom, much like what later happened to the Jonas Brothers. It was a doorway into Hollywood, a turning point every young group dreams of. But Diddy, due to contract issues, profit-sharing demands, and high transfer fees, caused the deal to fall apart. Disney couldn't wait. They shifted the project to the Jonas Brothers, and the rest became history. B5 never got that breakthrough again. If Disney had obtained rights to use B5, they would have become a national brand. But once that door slammed shut, Bad Boy also began to pull back its support. They were trapped between two powerful forces. One wanted them, the other kept them only to control, not to develop them. In the end, B5 belonged nowhere. No direction, no strategy, no protection from the power plays of the industry. And most importantly, they were trapped under Diddy's shadow, a shadow so large it swallowed nearly all the light they once had. The story of B5 is a crystal clear example of how young talent can be crushed when placed under the wrong management system. And once B5 began to feel that injustice, internal cracks followed, paving the way for the next cause of their collapse. Because if management was the first blade, then internal conflict was the second, the one that struck directly at the heart of the group. Internal conflicts and differing directions. If the first cause, Bad Boy Records' control and poor management, was an external blow, then the second came from a far more painful place inside the Breeding family itself. And it didn't stem from betrayal, selfishness, or jealousy like in TV dramas. It came from something much more complicated growing up. When B5 first appeared, Dustin was barely in his mid-teens and Brian hadn't even reached adolescence. They ate together, practiced together, slept in cramped hotel rooms together, rode small tour buses together, and dreamed of big stages together. But time, something no one can control, began pulling them apart in different directions. At their peak, the differences weren't big enough to spark conflict. But once the spotlight dimmed, those small cracks started to show. Dustin, the eldest and group leader, wanted B5 to mature, to experiment with contemporary R&B, to write more, to break away from the teen boy band box. Kelly leaned toward urban pop, wanting the group to follow new trends led by artists like Chris Brown and Neo. Carnell held on to traditional R&B and didn't want to lose the group's original essence. Patrick preferred a more mature, sexier image, something nearly impossible, while the label kept them trapped in a kid-friendly mold. And Brian, the youngest, stood between them all. He saw each brother wanting a different future, and it confused him more than anyone. For a group to survive, they must share one direction. But B5 stood before 5 different paths, none of which aligned. These differences could have been resolved if they had a strong visionary management team to guide, balance, and mediate. But Bad Boy had abandoned them. And without support, the smallest differences can ignite into a slow-burning fire. A bigger issue emerged: the pressure of growing up in front of the world. They had to mature under millions of eyes. And when each wanted to express their own identity, while being forced to stay uniform, frustration became inevitable, especially for young artists still trying to discover themselves. Eventually, that frustration could no longer be contained. When the second album failed, every doubt, fear, and bottled-up tension burst into the open. Instead of having someone help them resolve it, they were left to navigate chaos they weren't mature enough to handle. That was when Dustin decided he wanted a solo career. Kelly wanted to self-produce. Patrick wanted independence. Carnell wanted to keep the group rooted in classic R&B. Brian just wanted his family not to fall apart. But music isn't magic. It can't hold anyone together when their hearts want to walk in different directions. Another mistake, rebranding as audio. Not only did fans feel detached, the members themselves felt they were no longer who they used to be. Losing the name B5 meant losing a piece of their identity. That disconnect weakened the group more than ever. So from 2009-2013, B5 existed more on paper than on stage. They released sporadically, argued over creative direction, and made reluctant compromises. And although no one said it aloud, they all knew the original bond had fractured. Even when they attempted a comeback with Say Yes in 2013, the spark flickered like a flame that brightened for a second before dying out. Their internal unity was no longer strong enough to sustain momentum. One by one, they drifted toward individual paths, though their hearts remained tied to the name B5. The irony. They didn't fall apart because they hated each other. They fell apart because each wanted to be more honest with themselves, to make music that reflected who they were becoming, not the image the label forced upon them. And that is why the second cause was more devastating than the first. Bad management can kill a group, but internal conflict, even small, can destroy a dream from the inside. Yet B5's decline didn't stop there. Beyond label conflicts and personal differences, another force bigger, broader, and far more brutal was reshaping the entire music landscape, sweeping them away like an undertow. And that was the third cause, the one no teen group of that era survived. When the era no longer had a place for them. After 2010, the American music market flipped to a new chapter. Teen R&B, the very genre that once let B5 dominate BET, MTV, and countless major stages, plummeted without breaks. Audiences no longer wanted sweet, clean bubblegum pop melodies. They wanted music that was harder, sharper, edgier. Mainstream hip-hop surged like a storm. EDM exploded across radio. And K-pop began its ascent, bringing style, choreography, visuals, and global strategy at a level no American boy group could match. Meanwhile, B5 struggled to find a new identity, but they were still locked inside the teen boy band mold created by Bad Boy. They wanted to grow musically, but were chained to an old image. They wanted maturity, but every step forward was pulled back by the picture the market once loved. While artists like Chris Brown, Rihanna, Nayo, and Beyoncé continuously redefined R&B and pop, B5 were held fast inside an outdated version of themselves. Then a harsh truth appeared: their audience had grown up. The girls who once screamed at Mall of America were now in college working, building families. They no longer followed 17, 18-year-old poster boys. And the new generation of fans. They chose EXO, Big Bang, SHINee, BTS, K-pop groups trained with rigorous systems, world-class production, and extraordinary performance power. B5 lost their core fan base, lost their position, lost their market, and most importantly, lost the time they needed to adapt. But the market shift was only half the problem. The other half, more brutal and quieter, came from what the entertainment industry had taken from them. No one taught those 5 boys how to survive after the lights went out. No one warned them how quickly showbiz could wear down a child. No one told them that behind applause were massive pressures, sales meetings, harsh criticism, and unrealistic expectations, all placed on shoulders not yet grown. They never had a real childhood, never had the space to fail like ordinary young people, never had the pause to ask what they liked, wanted, or resonated with musically. They entered the industry while their peers were still playing games or biking around the neighborhood. And by the time they wanted to understand themselves, explore new sounds, and find their personal identity, the market had already moved on coldly, without waiting for anyone. The pressure of expectations, declining sales, and unclear direction pushed several members into exhaustion. No one argued, no one fought, no one betrayed anyone. Just prolonged fatigue, leading each one to quietly ask, "Should I keep going? What reason is left to stand on stage?" And the answer, heartbreakingly, was not much. When a group no longer has a place in the market, no label backing them, no clear path forward, a single slip is enough to send them into darkness. For B5, that slip wasn't scandal drama or a public blow-up. It was simply the turning of the era, and they were left behind. They slipped quietly off America's musical radar. No breakup announcement, no press conference, no farewell message. Just one day they stopped appearing. Then a month, then a year, then many years. Yet their story didn't end in silence. Just when everyone believed the name B5 had sunk permanently into early 2000s nostalgia, they returned more mature, calmer, and carrying the authentic energy they once weren't allowed to show. And that was when the story turned to a whole new chapter. How did they live after stepping away from the spotlight? And what made them want to come back? Hearts that never stopped singing. When B5's spotlight faded from the stage, many assumed the group had vanished completely into the past. But the truth wasn't that simple. The name B5 didn't fall into oblivion with a dramatic crash. They dissolved slowly, like mist carried by the wind so quietly that no one could pinpoint the moment they disappeared. One by one, each member stepped out of the music machine, with light, nearly silent footsteps, all searching for their true selves after years of being forced to grow up too fast under the lights. Dustin, once the creative heartbeat of the group, was the first to dive into a solo journey. No longer boxed into the image of a teen ballad singer, he wrote music. Self-produced, released the EP Different in 2015, and quietly became a truly independent artist. Kelly and Patrick chose a different kind of creative life. They entered fashion photography and design, building personal aesthetics they could never express when they were a teen pop brand under a label. Carnell slowed down, turning to fields like coaching, fitness, and massage therapy, things that helped him rebalance and heal from the pressures their youth on stage had left behind. And Brian, the youngest, once the fan favorite, whose name thousands of girls screamed, became the most private. He chose family and simplicity, but kept music alive in him through songwriting and small live streams with fans. The strange thing was, even though they went in different directions, their bond never severed. Unlike industry-manufactured groups, B5 were a real family. And family can go far, but never leaves entirely. That was what created one of the quietest, yet most touching reunions in recent R&B culture. In 2018, after 5 years of silence, as if they had never existed, B5 reunited unexpectedly. No flashy campaign, no press, no TV interviews. Just one song, Do That. A simple music video, a new spirit, an old group carrying a new soul, more mature, more stripped down, more sincere. Yet that return felt like a small flame touching the memories of a generation that grew up with All I Do. Fans came back from everywhere, not screaming like teenagers anymore, but leaving comments like letters to their younger selves. B5 are here, and I'm still here with them. That comeback opened the next chapter in 2025. The group released the EP Stay Still Think About You, a short album but full of mature R&B with no trace of the teen pop aesthetic bad boy once forced on them. The melodies were seasoned deep and produced entirely by the brothers. No label dictating their direction, no adults pointing fingers, no dry commercial strategy. Just 5 brothers, finally doing what they had long wanted to do, their music on their terms. What mattered most wasn't how successful the EP was, but the spirit inside it. Peaceful, self-possessed, and full of release. They no longer chased numbers, no longer tried to recapture their golden years, no longer forced themselves into a market mold. They simply sang naturally, freely, the same way 5 boys once stood in their garage practicing their very first notes. Today, the lives of the B5 members stretch across many fields. Some continue making music, some work in fitness, some run fashion businesses, some pursue photography, some take care of their families. But what they share now is a balance they never had in their youth. A life no longer controlled by a label, no longer monitored by management, no longer distorted by market expectations. They enjoy small, nostalgic performances, where fans no longer push in crowds of 2,000 like that Mall of America show in 2005, but applaud with hearts that have grown and learned to appreciate. They livestream, share their independent artist paths, and maintain their connection with fans, but in a healthier, gentler, more authentic way. B5 are no longer a chart-topping group, no longer a pop culture fever. But they have become something many famous artists never achieve a free version of themselves. They returned not to dominate, but to live truthfully. And perhaps that is their greatest victory.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.